Welcome to the complete story series from Mangastorian. My name is Benny, and today we're going to be covering Volume 2 of Berserk. All alterations to the panel, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. At the end of our last chapter, Guts escaped through a tunnel with an old man. The man told Guts that he would like him to kill the Count. He also would like to show him something. So he led Guts down a hidden passageway, where he revealed an egg-like object that Guts knew too well. The helmet. Guts quickly grabs the man by the neck, asking, "Just who are you, and how did you get this thing?" The man told him that he stole it from the Count, but he will tell him everything. His name is Vargas, and he used to work as the castle's physician. And 7 years ago, things began to change. The Count himself changed. He began to suspect that other people were heretics, and those that he captured would be cut and dissected alive, and then he would eat them. He too was a part of it. After the Count captured him and his family, they tried to get away from what he had become. And in return, the Count cut off pieces of him. He then made him watch as he ate his family. Vargas says that he only managed to escape because of a drug that he concealed that allowed him to fake his death. And so when the opportunity came, he left the castle, taking that thing with him. So since then, for 7 years, he's researched every aspect of religion and the occult, but still he has been unable to find out what this thing is. And Guts tells him, it's a key. A key that opens a portal to another world that overlaps ours and summons demons. Demons who manipulated the dark side of human history, the 5 members of Godhand. Meanwhile at the castle, Zondark gets up still injured from Guts, shouting, "Kill, kill, kill!" Zondark begins to knock things over and people away until the Count enters, asking, "What is going on?" Zondark continues shouting, "I will kill the Black Swordsman!" And then the Count tells everyone to leave the room. Zondark starts hitting his head against a pillar, and the Count grabs him asking, "Do you really want to kill him?" And Zondark tells him, "Yes, I'll do anything!" The Count tells him, "I will grant you a wish." And he begins to hold Zondark's head close, opening his mouth. A creature begins to worm its way out of the Count's mouth, and the Count tells him, take his demon inside of him. Back at Vargas' home, Puck begins making faces at the behelit, saying that it's a nice piece of artwork. But Guts kicks him away, telling him that it's not art. That thing is alive. Puck begins to complain, "Well, why didn't you tell me that before? I was touching it!" And Guts tells him, it may be alive, but it's no danger in its current state. It's kind of like a tool. Guts then asks, how was it that the Count came across it? And Vargas says that the Count bought it by chance. A caravan of merchants came to the castle, and they even said they didn't know anything about it. While Guts begins to wonder if it was really by chance, Vargas pulls out a map and begins to show him the secret passage. Then he begs him, because he's waited for this day for 7 years. Avenge him! Vargas grabs Guts by the shoulders, and Guts pushes him to the ground, telling him, "Do not touch me!" Puck then grabs his cloak, asking how come he's always picking on people, and Guts just flicks Puck away. "I won't avenge you, but I will kill the Count, all the same." And then Guts begins to hear something, and a giant figure comes crashing through the wall swinging an axe. He looks up and he sees that it's Zondark, and Zondark swings again. Guts manages to deflect the hit, but the power of it sends him to the ground. He then starts to get back up. He gets it now. This guy isn't even human anymore. Zondark tells him, "I will cut you to pieces!" And he begins to swing down his axe. Guts begins to get back up and he swings his massive sword, cutting off the arm holding the axe. Zondark begins to laugh. And then where his arm was cut, something begins to crawl out of it like lumps of flesh. It grows bigger and longer, and it picks up the axe, and Zondark yells, "Kill!" Guts begins to lick his lips, and then he readies himself in a stance, holding a sword behind him. Zondark begins to whip his arm around with the axe, and Guts blocks the attack. But he is still pushed back, and Zondark continues to whip his arm around. The wild swings begin to cut and break everything in the room, and Guts blocks every attack faster than the eye can see. The attacks continue over and over, and then Guts sees his opening, and he moves in for it. He appears behind Zondark, and he cuts off his other arm. He then crouch swings his sword upwards, slicing off part of Zondark's head. The cuts that Guts made begin to pulse, and then a head pushes itself out, telling him, "Not bad for a mortal." The demon begins to taunt Guts, telling him, "You have impressive skills. Surely no human can defeat you. But you being a mortal human will be your downfall." Zondark gets ready to attack again, and that's when the ceiling begins to cave in from all of the damage, and it falls directly onto Zondark. Vargas opens up a trap door, telling Guts to hurry, and the 3 of them escape into the sewers. As they get out, Vargas asks if that was the Count, and Guts tells him, "No, more like my demon, really. This is where we part, so if you don't mind giving me the behelit, think of it as a down payment for killing the Count." And then Guts leaves, and Pucks tells Vargas to take care of himself. But before Vargas can leave, the fleshy arm creeps up from the waters and grabs him. Guts walks through the city and Puck asks him why is he so rude, just walking off like that. You both want to kill the Count. You're allies! And Guts asks him, you're kidding, right? I can't be bothered with good-for-nothing bastard people acting like friends. That goes for you too, bug. Before turning a corner, Guts overhears some townspeople talking about how there's going to be another execution. They say it's a friend of the guy who's been causing all of the commotion the other day. Guts grits his teeth and he continues to walk off. Later, Guts starts to prepare for his fight by setting and arming his crossbow, and Puck tries to get his attention asking him something, but Guts just ignores him. After getting frustrated with no answer, Puck tells him, fine, I can take a hint, and he flies off. But after Puck flies off, Guts takes off his mechanical arm, and he touches the missing part of his arm, and he thinks back to Vargas, thinking how they both have similar wounds, and then he touches his brand. The voice of Vargas telling him to avenge him rings through his head, and Guts punches the wall next to him. Later, during the execution, Puck watches trying to figure out what it is that he can do, and as he looks at the crowd, he sees Guts standing in an alleyway. He flies down telling him, I knew you would come, so what are you gonna do? But Guts begins to smile, telling him, you got it all wrong. I just came to watch him die. He then motions over to the castle and he tells Puck to look. There's a trap set over there for when I actually go out. The soldiers will come bursting out to capture me. But if you want to do something so badly, why don't you save him? Guts begins to say how a misfit like Vargas can't even swing a sword, so it's pointless to think about how he could defeat the Count. Ambition comes with a price, but the reward for ambition too great is self-destruction. Puck begins to feel all of the emotions that Guts is displaying, dark and violent emotions, self-hating and destructive. Is this the source of Guts' strength? Puck then tells him that he must be afraid of the Count then. Afraid of losing a battle like Vargas? If so, why even come here? Guts grabs him, telling him, you talk too much. And then Puck bites down on Guts' hand, freeing himself, telling him, you're just a selfish bastard and a chicken. As Puck flies off, Guts wonders what he should be feeling. Is it compassion? Puck watches from above the crowd as the executioner readies his axe for a swing, and then he looks over to Guts, who was just standing there. Puck decides that if Guts won't do anything, he will. And just as the executioner holds his axe up, Puck flies in and bounces off of the axe. The Count tells him to hurry up and finish this, but Vargas yells out to Guts and begging him to hold up this devil's severed head for everyone to see. Then the executioner swings, and Vargas's head flies off. Guts watches and then begins to leave, but as he walks down the alley, he sees a creature that's been haunting him. And when it turns its head to him, Guts sees that it's Vargas' face instead. Guts falls to his knees and all he can hear is Vargas stating, hold his severed head! Hold his severed head! Hold his severed head! Later that night, the guards begin to take Vargas' body and head to the pit. But as one of the guards looks at Vargas' face, he then sees a giant shadow looming over it, and then he sees Guts' face. After killing the guards, Guts looks at Vargas' head and he says, he won't fail, like him. Soon Guts begins to see something. He sees the souls of all of the dead bodies in the pit, and they begin to grab a hold of Guts, telling him, revenge, revenge, we want revenge, together. But as Guts stands, his arm twitching, he screams, no! The spirits begin to scatter, and Guts shouts, we'll never have anything in common, you're all dead. This is my fight, a person of flesh and blood. That's right, I'll do it myself. I will kill the Count with his own flesh and blood. Meanwhile, back at the castle, the Count captures Puck and puts him in a cage, and he begins to take him somewhere else in the castle. He then opens up a locked door, and inside of that door is a young girl sitting on a bed. The girl looks up, says, Father, and the Count says that he has something for her. He then hands her the cage where she sees Puck. The young girl, Theresa, says, thank you. And the Count tells her, be patient. I can't let you out of this room and into an impure world overrun by filthy heretics. He begins to reach out to touch her, but Theresa pulls away and he asks, still, you won't let me touch you? He tells her, so be it. It's getting late, so good night. And then he leaves. Down in the lower part of the castle, Guts makes his way through the secret passageway that Vargas had shown him until he hears something. He looks up and he sees Zondark, but this time the flesh has oozed out of every part of his armor, and now his other arm is just as long as the previous one. The demon tells him, no more games, and he starts to flail his arms, destroying everything around him. Guts pulls out his crossbow and he begins firing bolts into Zondark's chest. With so many bolts, it knocks him over. He then loads up more bolts, but the demon starts to whip its arms around again. Once loaded, Guts continues to fire until the demon stops moving, and then he makes him move. He grabs his sword and he charges up the stairs, slashing down onto the demon. The body part he cuts off rolls to the edge of the stairs, and Guts just watches. And once it's out of sight, he continues walking. Just as he begins to put his sword away, a fleshy arm comes whipping back up, hitting Guts in the head. And as he falls down, the arms begin to climb back up. Soon a giant fleshy body crawls above him, telling him, unless you cut off the head, I'll just keep regenerating. But as the demon finishes his sentence, a sword slices into his head, and Guts tells him, thanks for the tip. He then begins to lift the sword up, ripping the head off. And as it starts to crawl down his sword, he turns and slams the broad side of the sword against the wall, and the demon's head slides down it. The demon then says, "One thing, it's not over yet. I'll be waiting for you upstairs." Guts tries to walk up the stairs, but he's lost so much blood that it's making him weak. He tells himself that he can't give up, and then he begins shouting, "I will skewer him! I will skewer his head on my blade!" Back upstairs, Theresa opens up Puck's cage, and she tells him that she understands if he doesn't trust her. She is the Count's daughter after all. Her father has been such a different person ever since the day that her mother died 7 years ago. Theresa begins to state how her mother was kidnapped by pagan worshippers, demanding to let them practice their faith freely. The Count didn't give in to their demand, and then her mother was sacrificed as an offering to the evil god. Since then, he's been hunting heretics, but lately, it doesn't even matter if they're heretics or not. He just seems to enjoy hurting people. It's like he's not even human anymore. Guts continues to walk through the castle, up the tower, until he faces a room full of soldiers. Dahl, the Count's assistant, tells Guts that they knew he would be coming, so he can surrender quietly or he will have him killed at once. But Guts tells him, "Move! You're in my way! Move!" Dahl then tells the archers to fire, but Guts just holds up his sword, blocking them. As Dahl sees the arrows blocked, Guts then runs forward, swinging his sword, cutting through the guards, slicing torsos and heads off. The spearmen then advance, and as they corner and thrust, Guts ducks and then swings again, cutting through the guards. He continues cutting and slicing through everyone, but Dahl calls out for Jericho to come out. Jericho steps out and charges at Guts, swinging his flail, but as Guts turns, he swings his sword down on Jericho, cutting through his shield and into his shoulder. Jericho staggers back and Guts swings a second time, but this time through his stomach. The rest of the guards begin to run, and Guts continues to walk up the stairs, and then he stands over Dahl. But all Dahl can see is a blank stare from Guts. Up in the tower, Puck and Theresa continue to talk, and she tells him how she's never been able to leave this room for the past 7 years. As Puck looks at her, he sees this child has a sober eye as she looks out of her window. And that's when they hear something. The guards below talk of a burglar, but Puck knows it is not a burglar, it is Guts, and he tells her that she needs to let him out. So she lets Puck out, and after shutting her window, he knocks on the window and tells her that he forgot to tell her. He'll be back, and he'll take her out of here. Alrighty then, bye! Back below, Guts kicks Dahl through the doors into the Count's chamber, and he makes his way in to see the Count. The Count sits on his throne telling Guts, "It's impressive you've come this far. Now come test me. Let's see how far human power will go." Guts starts to walk towards him and then up the steps, but then he stops and stabs his sword into the stairs, hitting part of the Count that was hiding there. The Count tells him, "Nicely countered. Now I can grasp the extent of your skills." Puck begins to fly towards the Count's chamber, but then the walls break by him, and inside he sees Guts. The Count tells Guts, "I will crush you," and he begins to grow into a giant fleshy creature. And with a massive swing, Guts cuts off the Count's arm, and just as quickly as it was cut off, it begins to grow back. The Count says, "It doesn't matter. Cut parts off, I will just grow bigger and bigger." As the Count continues destroying the room, over in Theresa's tower, the walls and the ceilings begin to crack and fall, and as she ducks from the falling debris, she sees that her doors are broken and open, so she decides this is her chance to finally leave. Back in the Count's chambers, he starts thrashing about trying to catch Guts, but Guts begins to dodge his attacks and begins to hide behind a pillar. As the Count starts to search, Guts sees Dahl, and he has an idea. The Count sees Guts' cloak behind the pillar and begins to crash into it, causing it to fall on top of Guts. And then the Count looks at the body and sees that it was Dahl wearing Guts' cloak. Just as Guts comes rushing out, swinging and cutting off the front tentacles of the Count. The Count then turns, grabs Guts, and slams him into another pillar. Guts begins to gather himself and stand up, and the Count tells him, "It's pointless. You can never win. And you can die knowing that you at least inflicted one attack on me." He then swings and knocks Guts away, but before Guts can get back up, the Count grabs one of his legs and begins to whip him across the room, hitting him into pillars in the ground. As he holds up Guts' lifeless body, the Count tells him, "It seems you still won't drop your sword, so I will just have to finish this." And he slams Guts one more time into a pillar, letting the blood pour from him. And then the Count begins to laugh as he towers over Guts' defeated body. And that is the conclusion to Volume 2. Volume 3 will be here very soon, so I hope you're excited. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Mangastorian, and I'll see you next time right here.